What is up, guys? It's James from FishStakes. We're back on Flight Sim and we are continuing our little series on the Airbus A320 Neo. So if you've been following along with the last video, you'll now be up in the air on autopilot following the flight plan that we set, or you set, to wherever your destination may be. Now, we did have a request asking about how to control headings, speed, and I assume altitude as well when up in the air on the fly. So we're going to go over that today in a very short video. So at this point you can see we've taken off, we're up in the air, we're following our flight plan on autopilot, and we're currently in the cruising section of the flight. You can tell that this screen has changed to cruise, so we know we're cruising. We also know because we've reached our cruising altitude of 37,000 feet, which we did select before we'd taken off. Let's start with heading change, for example. We might want to change heading. So typically, as mentioned, we wouldn't have to change anything. This plane will follow the flight path that we set, and it will take us to Helsinki in autopilot. But occasionally, air traffic control might call in and they might say to you, we need you to follow this particular heading for such and such a time until we say otherwise, and you can return to your route. Now, you don't want to turn autopilot off in that situation and take control of the plane yourself. All you want to do is alter the heading and allow autopilot to follow that heading for the time being. So let's imagine that air traffic control have just called in and they want us to change our heading. What we do is we come up here, turn your cursor on, come up here underneath the heading option, which is currently blank. The reason that's blank is because we're running on autopilot and it's taking everything from the flight management system here. If we go to our flight plan, it's taking all of its information from here. So we're currently here at Tinak and we're currently at 37,000 feet because that's what our flight plan is telling the plane to do. But we're going to change our heading now. We're going to head away from Tinak. Tinak is at 046 and we are going to change. So we come up to our heading and we hit X. You can see you've got X to engage selected heading mode, or A to engage managed heading mode. We're in managed heading mode at the moment. That is where it takes all its information from the system. So we're going to hit X. And now we'll be able to alter the heading on the fly. You can see the blue arrow on the screen to our left. That's now our heading. And as I move these coordinates, the blue arrow moves. And you might notice as well the plane is also moving. So let's say they want us to go to 105 and then maintain. We go to 105 and then we hit X on the controller. And then we can hit B to exit out of that. Now, you'll notice the plane is turning on its own. I'm not touching anything. I'm not touching the yoke or anything. The plane is turning on its own, and if we come over to this screen, you'll be able to see 105 is this blue line here. The plane is going to turn. Once it reaches this blue triangle, it will steady itself and continue on that course until I tell it to do otherwise. So we're just approaching the 105 heading now. I'll try and get a view outside the cockpit as well, just so you can see the plane steady itself. You can see it's starting to right itself now as we approach the heading. And any second now it'll rest nicely on our 105 marker. And typically this will happen if there is busy traffic and they need to divert your plane for a while traffic passes, and they'll always say return to previous heading once they're ready for you to return. This rarely happens in Flight Sim, to be honest, and you probably won't ever need to use it, but you may, especially if you are going to overshoot a landing or something like that. Any reason why you might want to change your heading and deviate from the path that you have set. So as you can see now, we're lined up with our blue triangle and the plane is following that path. Now, should I want to change heading again, I can just come in here and again I can change this number. As you can see, the plane is already starting to turn. I'm doing nothing. It's already starting to follow the new flight plan that I've selected, and I can hit X again to have it follow the new heading, and you'll see the plane is starting to turn towards our new heading. Now we can do the same thing with speed. It works in exactly the same way. For example, air traffic control might ask us to hit a certain speed. Perhaps they want us to slow down for a particular reason. So you come in here and you hit X to engage selected speed mode. It works exactly the same way. Once you hit X, you'll now see a number has appeared above under speed, and we can change that quite easily. So as I drop that speed, you can physically hear the engine and the throttle slowing down. And you'd hit X again, and we will begin to drop in speed to reach the new speed that we've selected. It does take a while. Remember, these are a large aircraft, but it will drop to our new selected speed. And should we want to speed up, again, you'll hear it. You can both hear and see the engines on this dial firing up as we approach our new speed of 291 knots. Now, should we want to return to both our flight planned heading and our flight plan speed, that's very simple. So we'll start with the speed, we'll hit A, and then you just hit A to engage manage speed mode. Now you'll notice the speed has disappeared. The plane will follow the speed that it has been directed to follow on our flight plan. And with the heading, we do the same thing. We select it and then we hit A to go to managed heading mode. You can see our heading has now disappeared, and the plane is beginning to turn to find the designated heading from our flight management system, which will put us back on track towards Helsinki. I'll get us back on track and then I will show you how the altimeter works, but it does work in the same way. If we come to our map, we can actually zoom out. An ND range of 20 is far too close once we're in cruising altitude. If we put it to 80 nautical miles, we can see our flight plan here that we should be following, and we can see this is us here, and we are slowly approaching our flight plan again, and we will get back on track shortly. So while the plane does that, I'll go through the altitude, which works the same way. So right now, the altitude is being managed by the system with a cap of 37,000, which is our cruising altitude, which we set before we took off. So we can come here, and let's say air traffic control have asked us to drop to an altitude of 10,000 feet. We'll come in here, we'll hit X to engage select altitude mode, and then we'll drop the altitude down to 10,000 feet. You can see already, hit X again, and then hit B to exit that. You can see already the plane is dropping. And if we come to our altimeter, you can also see that our altitude will begin to drop, and it will begin to drop here as well. There we go. We are now descending to 10,000 feet. You'll know it's going to happen because 10,000 feet has now been selected here below the altimeter, so we know we're now dropping from our current altitude to the selected altitude of 10,000 feet. If for any reason you need to expedite this, your vertical speed control is here, and you can use this to adjust exactly how fast you want the plane to ascend or descend. But typically, unless there's an emergency or unless air traffic control are requesting it, we don't need to expedite the descent. The plane will safely descend to the altitude that we've selected. Should we want to go back to our cruising altitude, we do have to set it first to 37,000 feet just to make sure that the system caps. But then we can hit A to engage managed altitude mode, which will now, the aircraft will not exceed 37,000 feet. It will take all of its altitude information from the flight management system. So you'll see now, this has changed to 37,000 feet, and the aircraft is starting, or will start very shortly to ascend. Slowing down the descent now. And as this green line approaches the middle and begins to rise, we will see that the aircraft will ascend. You can also see, while we've been messing about with the altitude, that we are now approaching our designated flight plan and Tinnack, which was the next coordinate on our list. That should be all you need to know, guys, in terms of autopilot in the Airbus. Again, you won't need to really use this too much, but if you are using air traffic control and they do ask you to change speed, change altitude, or change your heading on the fly, you now know how to do that. You know how to return to your flight plan afterwards once they give you the all clear. And that should be everything, guys, until it comes to landing. We will try and get some landing videos out as soon as possible, but in the meantime, if there's anything you would like to know, please do let us know in the comments. Stay tuned for the 747 videos. I'm going to do the same videos in the 747, so how to start it up, how to take off in autopilot, and how to use the autopilot. It is slightly different to the Airbus. Some would say a little bit more difficult. It does have 4 engines instead of 2, and a slightly older, more outdated system to the Airbus. So a little bit more to get your head around, but it's not too different, and I actually do prefer it. But listen, guys, if you've enjoyed this video and it has helped you out at all and you have learned anything, please do give us a like and a subscribe, and leave a comment if you want. It does help the channel out. We are new, we are still growing, but we do appreciate any support that we get. And until next time, I do wish you, as ever, a wonderful flight. Peace.